Hi, I'm Jasmine, career consultant, influencer, inclusive leader, mentor, connector, advocate, author, entrepreneur, but most importantly, I'm a Black woman navigating the journey of seeking purpose, hoping to positively impact people along the way. Started this podcast to bring the aha moments to life and inspirational takeaways from my book. And by facilitating meaningful conversations, I hope to listen to diverse perspectives and to continue to grow, but also help others as I continue on the journey of seeking purpose. Today, we have an amazing guest. I mean, what doesn't she do? A realtor, project manager, fashionista, board president, a mover and a shaker, all around amazing person. But my favorite role of hers is my good sis, Amanda Best, aka Auntie Mandy. Welcome to the Seeking Purpose podcast.
Hello, Jasmine. What a wonderful, warm welcome. Thank you for having me here.
You're welcome. So I wanted you to be on this particular episode because today's theme is all about living boldly. And when I think of living boldly, I think of you. From energy to flair, the way you approach life, you do that boldly. And whenever we chat, we both, I feel like, always leave refueled or ready to attack life and just level up. Yes. And the last piece is like, you're not afraid to hit me with the hard questions, which is also key for this episode. Something that I would say is hot off the press. One, this is my last episode on what I'm calling the Runway to 30. And my theme for this next decade of life is living boldly. And we'll talk about it a little bit once we get into this episode. But when I think about the definition of what it means to be bold or do things boldly, like showing an ability to take risks, being confident, being courageous, and just feeling like this next season is all about divine timing and really going after what my purpose is. Yeah. So I'm excited to see where our conversation goes. And I think what's going to make this episode a little different is that you've got some questions for me that I don't know what they are.
I do.
So let's get started with, I guess, what does living boldly mean to you? And when I sent you the episode title, what stood out to you?
Being yourself, unapologetically, but also within reason. And when I say within reason, self-awareness, because sometimes when you say being bold, that can be a broad statement. I'm not here to endorse anybody to be a menace to society. So you need to have some self-control with being bold. But that comes with that self-awareness. But back to your original question, being comfortable in your skin, understanding what people will miss if you weren't there. And when I was supervising, I had my direct reports. They wanted to submit applications, to grow in their career. I always told them, when you're preparing for your interview and also your resume, think about something that they don't have that they need and that you're the only one that has it. So that's part of being bold. If I'm not a part of my family, what would they miss? And if I didn't have certain family members, what would I miss as well? So that's a part of being bold.
I love that piece that you coined of like, what will people miss if it's not you? Yeah. And I think that's kind of like that underlying key to seeking purpose, right? Like it's beyond this idea of what would you do if you could do it for free? Right. But what are the things that come naturally to you that people look to you for? But also that little thing that keeps gnawing at you that does not go away and it finds you in all the spaces that you're in. And I think that little piece of magic then becomes the thing that people miss when you're not there.
Yeah. It's all about, your value and understanding your value and always finding creative ways to display your value. We're all green last season. how can I build upon my green wardrobe? What colors can I add to it, to complement it and make things stand out? So building upon your values, also being bold as well.
So, I mean, I'll speak for myself, but I do feel like a lot of people find themselves in this area of like, okay, what happens when you're in that moment of like, okay, I know what I value, but how do I be confident in that, right? That then leads to that boldness.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about like your experience of what kind of led you into living a bold life and recognizing, one, this is what I value, this is me, these are my gifts, this is my purpose. But how do I live that with confidence?
Excellent question, Jasmine. So glad you asked. For me, it comes up with my upbringing. Of course, Christian, church girl. So our faith, the preachers always preach about having holy boldness. And that means you're not going in your own, you're leading to a higher power, something. So my boldness starts with my relationship with God and the Lord. In all your ways, acknowledge him and he will direct your path. So that's the start to that boldness. And those things were instilled in me as a child. On top of that, my mom. That's a bold lady,
Period. Yes.
Bold lady. My dad as well. So them affirming me and always encouraging me to, not follow the crowd. And I know that's very cliche, but you have to understand you're not following the crowd. You follow wisdom, but not following the crowd. So those principles, and also them allowing me to find my way of how I express myself. Now I'm not the greatest artist, but as a child, all of my drawings, bright colors. But when things started turning in my mood, was kind of getting sad, whatever, it would be a lot of like browns and blacks. So when my mom identified that, she's like, what's going on? My teacher's seen that. What's going on? So really rearing me to find myself, but also with them as the adults being there to cover me and protect me so that I can understand, where my boundaries are. Because some things that you're okay to do, Jasmine, I may not be okay with, and vice versa. And that's not right or wrong, but that's still being bold, but within your own self, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And I think one of the things we always joke about is like, did we have the same childhood? Did we live the same life? And so I do think we were really blessed to have amazing folks in our lives, whether it's just our family, our mentors, great groups of community. And I do think that that's helped so much, on both of our journeys that we talk about all the time.
It takes a village.
But I'll be honest, one of the things that really inspired me to embrace this idea of living boldly is something I wasn't prepared for on the journey, right? Like, especially when you grow up in faith, you don't really know that you have it until you're tested and you experience some things. And I feel like your 20s are really where you're figuring those things out, but you're really having real life experiences and learning that space for yourself. And that's honestly something that I wasn't expecting on the journey, especially someone who was like, I'm excited for life. I'm always like pushing towards growth, but like feeling all the feels, right? So anything from grief, joy, frustration, love, like all of those things. And I think we're not always open and transparent about how you find yourself sometimes grieving what you thought things would be while being thankful for what you do have and where you are.
Right.
But being confident, being courageous enough to push forward with boldness. And so recently I had a conversation with my dad about just kind of things of where I'm at, looking back at like, okay, this milestone, this decade, what have you done? Kind of thinking about also planning next steps because we're like 6 months into the year, all these things.
Yeah.
And there's something about dads, though, that are a little frustrating where they don't allow you to stay in your feelings, right? Like they always have to have like a solution, which do with that what you will. But in his mind, like I was complaining about like all the things that I haven't done, and I haven't like reflected of all the great things, and being in that, right? But then talking it through with my therapist, I can recognize now that that's like a form of grief, right? And the ways of transition. And sidebar pause, like if you're really considering doing the work, I'd 1000% recommend therapy when you are ready for that. But having somebody unbiased that you can talk to who's, not afraid to check you, but have these conversations with you, like, and remove. And so a part of living boldly to me is like being honest about those things and all those feelings, right? And I'm curious, what is your, I don't want to necessarily say coping mechanism, but like, what do you do when you find yourself like feeling all the feels, but you need to push forward and you need to continue to, make things happen?
Well, I go shopping. Find a good deal.
We love a good deal.
Yeah, find a dress for $10. Some slacks, $5, $25 pumps. I'm happy. No, but that's part of it, because that's my form of therapy. But like you stated, talking to someone. So, of course, my sister, trusted friends, even trusted work colleagues, I want to make sure that I'm not overreacting on something. I'm like, should I really feel this way? Like, I just want to make sure that I'm not going crazy. That's my first step. And then, if it's a thing like, Amanda, it's not that deep, relax. It's like, okay, I was being dramatic. But on the other end, when they confirm, I understand, because I'm a person that's big on principle. You stepped on my toe, fine. You did it, my toe hurt. But when you act like you didn't do it, and we both know you did it, then that's where the problem lies right there. So when I'm having that moment of feeling all the feels, I do give myself time to lament. Jasmine, you know me. But, sometimes I have to take 30 minutes. I try not to go to bed with it heavy on me. And if I'm still heavy by the time I go to bed, wake up, certainly giving it over to God. Like, I'm just having like a silent lament. But then my next steps will be, understanding what's going to happen if I stay here. Because time keeps on going. Do I want to get stuck, or do I want to, walk this thing out? And walking something out, walking your feels out, is actually doing something, actually identifying, it could be worse. Even if it's like a worse thing to me, I say, you know what? I'm grateful. Sometimes that's all I can say. I sit in the car and like, you know what? I'm grateful, because it really could have been worse. But what can I do better? How do I come out of it? You can't change the past, but you can change how you respond. You can prepare how you respond, how you move forward. So, I accept what happened and the reality of it. That's one thing. I'm not going to be delusional about it. But after I have that acceptance, I shake the dust off my boots. I think about how I can maximize off of this situation. And once I kind of plan and map it out, whether it's the exact plan, okay, there's a plan B, but I'm actively doing something to kind of work my way out. But you can't do it on your own. Like I was saying earlier, we say it takes a village to raise a child, but I believe it takes a village to remain an adult, So I lean towards my village, my resources, to kind of help me navigate out of it. Because if you just tuck your tail, stay in a corner, what good is that really going to do for you? So
I love that you highlighted acceptance, because I feel like that's the point of this transition, I think, in this next decade, right? Like, so accepting your gifts and all the things that come with it. And I also believe from a faith standpoint, right? Like, that is our cross that we're supposed to pick up and carry, right? And actually live out. And so all the things, all the feels, all the things that come with it, but like making a choice of, okay, what's in my control and how do I work through it? So I'm curious to know a hard-hitting question. How have your priorities shifted, like in terms of career, life, relationships, personal growth, as you've recently entered your 30s?
Well, I certainly have to change perspective. I'm still kind of new to being 30. Still kind of new to being 30, but I was talking to my sister, like, I understand when people say when you turn 30, it's like a switch. And certain things that you would have tolerated or went for in your 20s, at your 30, you're like, yeah, no, we're going to nip this in the bud now. So as it pertains to my priorities, career, thinking about different things I want to go, certain habits, what was I doing? Was I not planning enough? Was I not, practicing proper time management, not practicing proper self-care, because I feel like you got to be workaholics. Oh, you're being successful. You're being successful. Nobody wants to have a meeting with somebody that has like 10 years of bags under their eyes. Because I'm going to be like, hey, bud, let's get some rest. Did you drink water? Did you take care of yourself? So self-care priority shifted. This is my day. Saturday's my day. After 5:30, no more work talk. Next day, like those
a boundary.
Things. Yes, a boundary, a healthy boundary. It's not like a boundary where you're like, no. But just kind of level setting those expectations for yourself so you could be successful. Me personally, I've been maintaining my commitment to my yearly planner. I should have brought it so you can see. It's so cute. I got it from Target. But when I was in my master's program, my last semester before I graduate, that's when I start to use the planner. And I was upset with myself. I should have been using it, when I started, but can't change the past. However, when I had that planner, that was my most successful semester, and I graduated, of course, successfully. But since then, I've committed. Every year I'm getting a planner. I chunk things out. I'm planning things week by week. I don't try to plan the whole month in one setting. That's too much, but I pace myself and I stay committed. So I have to check off everything that I've completed. If I didn't complete all of Monday's tasks on Monday, if I do it Tuesday, I'm going back to Monday to checking it off. So that accountability factor. So it's not really like the big things, but those small things that help me get to the big things. Next with career, at the end of the day, it's all about the money. So I learned not to lowball myself, though I'm always a learner. But even with me being a learner, I think about some of my experiences. So I'm like, I think I'm coming in with something. So therefore, I'm not going to lowball, myself. So really understanding my value and the work that I put into, education, doing freelance work, in the church, we tithe with our time as well.
That's very true.
But it's very rewarding. So like when I was 13 at my grandfather's church, they brought me on to be like the recording secretary. So I took the minutes. I don't discount those days because by the time I was 18, I could assist in board meetings and write everything in detail because that was my training. So I look at every job that I've done, odd job, whatever, and I merge that experience together to make sure that I'm a, successful candidate. So
love that. Know your worth.
Know your worth.
And one of the things you mentioned too that I would like to add, I feel like, on that list of things of how your priorities shifted. One of the last books I read was Balance by Torrey Roberts. And he really talks about how like the idea of the way that we traditionally think of balance of 50-50 is a myth. And I think that's so true, but it's more of like, what does balance look like for what's a priority for you now? And so some things might be 70%, some things might be, 20%, or like you mentioned, self-care. Sometimes you have to choose you over other things. Right. And so reading it and thinking about it in that way kind of really freed me from the idea of like I have to give the same amount of energy to everything.
Absolutely not.
Which then obviously leads to burnout and things like that. But what does that sense of balance look like in that priority list?
Excellent question, Jasmine.
And it's okay if you don't know the answer, but it's just something, you know what I mean? It's just something to think about that like really shifted the way I even schedule myself. And so I think a lot of times when we're balancing what purpose is, because sometimes our day jobs don't always match what we think our purpose is, or we're working towards it, or that whatever that journey is. I think knowing that it's okay that balancing things might shift at different points in your life.
I think I do have an answer, and it may seem like, what? But, you know, work is there, so that schedule is kind of set. But as far as real estate, that's kind of open. And that's okay, but I feel like me choosing who I spend my downtime with, it does affect and impact how I'm navigating my time with day-to-day work stuff. So I said that to say, if you're a person that's not really productive or not trying to work towards getting better, I kind of limit my time with you. But I make sure I surround myself with those that are, you know, goals are in alignment. Some things I can draw back. Like, Jasmine, you are just like, Jasmine be on it.
Thank you.
She has a schedule to the T. And that's something that I want to perfect within myself. So even if it's a little time of just grabbing ice cream, the spirit that you carry, the spirit of excellence that you carry, I like to be around that because that will then rub off on me. So said that to say, with prioritizing myself, I try to surround myself, I do surround myself with people that when I leave their presence, I don't feel empty, because I've done that a lot in my 20s, where I just felt like I just had to think, just be there, you know, not saying I can't be a listening ear, but then there's some times that I'm going through stuff and I need someone to be a trusted listening ear. So really identifying those people that I deem as friends, family, that can give that to me. And those small things, again, it helps with the bigger.
One, I love that. And thank you for the compliment. I appreciate it. But I think that is important, who's around you, who you allow in your space. And just as much as people can take withdrawals from you, like, are people depositing as well? And that is something that, you know, like, we joke about my scheduling, but I'm like really intentional and thoughtful about not just how I spend my time and who I spend my time with. And so I do think, like, if I'm encouraging anybody, like, really evaluate who's in your circle, and like, is that helping you get to where you want to go, right? Like, are you around them out of obligation or just time? Because we all have some people in our life who we're just they're there just because
I've been
of time or seat filler
years.
or whatever. But really thinking about, in those moments, even back to earlier when we were talking about when you're feeling all the feels, like, I know I can call you and be like, you know, Auntie Mandy, like, I'm dealing with this right now. Like, can we just get together? Can we talk it out or whatever, whether it's work, life, whatever those things are. And so I think that that's important to have those people, but also who see the things in you that you can't necessarily see. Like, we talk all the time, but we've never talked about how, like, oh, Jasmine rubs off on me on, you know, my scheduling or, you know, other things that we might joke about. But I think that that's important.
And I do want to put this plug in for the people.
We love a plug.
Do not feel bad because you decide to weed out who's in that area. And I will say, let it be God. Like I said earlier, don't go on your own might. But I always say, Lord, whoever's supposed to be here will be here. It's like a birthday party and somebody, they sent out 150 invitations and only 25 people showed up. Now, that will make somebody mad. You don't pay for the food, the DJ, you know, the beautiful balloon arrangement, you know, entertainment. You got everything decked out. But because I used to be that person. Like, I want everything to be perfect. I invite all these people, and when they have something, I show up, and they're not here. Feeling the feels. Step back. Be grateful for those that are there. They're quality people. And, you know, not to say that it's all about money, but you could have 150 people attend and only 25 people give you a card with money or some sort of gift in it. Because I've seen that either. It was a room full of people, and you know what? Only 5 people gave me a gift. So, said that to say it is okay when certain people fall off. A situation doesn't have to be created. That's another thing too. I'm getting a little comfortable, Jasmine.
I love the turn. Like, whenever there's a turn, you know it's gonna get good. Tell me more.
That's another thing. When God starts shifting your circle, it doesn't always have to be, oh, we got in an argument because she didn't want to give me $5 back. It doesn't have to be an argument. It doesn't have to be anything negative. Life truly happens, and we're all on a journey. And if Jasmine's on a journey and her journey calls for us to kind of lose contact, you know, for a year or whatever, I'm not going to take it personal. You know, as adult friendships are, you got to schedule 3 months out, you know, to see each other for 2 hours.
That's very true. That's very true.
And I have a lot of friends where we've been friends for years. You know, we may not necessarily talk every day, but when we see each other, we don't miss a beat. We're right on. We're spot on. And then most of them are the ones that give me the on-time word. And I'm like, wow, like, you didn't even know what I was going through. But be okay with the newer people that are coming in and the older people that will phase out. Because maybe the older people are phasing out because they need to be refreshed. And they need to be prepared for their next and also your next. But also realize everybody cannot handle your next blessing.
That's true.
They can't do it. And I've been a witness, and I've seen where a lot of blessings were withheld because you had the wrong folk around it.
I think a lot of people focus on, like, you know, that saying, like, what's for you will be for you. But I also think that's true about people. Like, who's for you will be for you. Some people are supposed to be in your life for seasons, moments, things, just as much as we're supposed to be in people's lives for seasons, moments, support them with things. But if somebody is meant to be there, they'll be there, and it'll adjust the way that it should. But don't be afraid to let go or let things play out the way that they're supposed to. Because I always say, like, I've never had a no that didn't result into something greater. Exactly. And I think that's the same with people. Like, you might lose people, you might lose 3 or 4, but the 2 that you're left with are worth even more.
Your anchors.
Very true.
And if somebody say, no, you know what I do? Thumbs up. It's all right.
Yes.
It's all right.
Okay, I love that. Thumbs up. Is this our new thing?
Yeah. Thumbs up.
Love it. Switching gears a little bit for the woman of the cloth, because you mentioned faith so much, which I think is important. So I want to talk a little bit about spiritual boldness. And I have a hot take of something that I've just been thinking about and really kind of studying, you know, in my journey and, you know, where I'm at, right? And one of the things that we often hear is, like, 33 is your Jesus year. And not negating that significance. Right. But I think people jump over the fact that Jesus actually starts his ministry at 30. And so I think that is such a huge, like, aha moment for me when it comes to this next stage of life. And so 30 isn't this ending that some people might fear. And it's actually a beginning. So not to be afraid of that, but, like, this is also that idea of living boldly and stepping into purpose, right? Like, because if Jesus did it at 30, you like, why wouldn't I? Right. And so thinking about, like, prior to this moment, like, even if you look at his life, like, you know, being hidden or being prepared, as you talked about, like, everything that you've gone through up until this point might be connecting you to what you asked for, what you hoped for, what you wanted, even though you didn't see it at the time. Right. So the saying that like you don't know if something is a success until you see the results, right? So you've got to take those risks and have that kind of cultivation. And so thinking about like, what does this look like stepping into that? What does it look like? How does it change the way that I approach this season of life? And for me, like, I think it's intentionality, but also like just being really strategic and like standing on those things, right? Like, you know what you have, you know what you've been prepared for, and now it's just like hitting the gas and doing it.
Yeah. Ugly.
Oh, it's ghetto and ugly and all the things.
It can get really ugly, and you have to be okay with it being ugly. But also being grateful for the ugly as well, because that's your preparation time. You're 30, you never experienced being 30 before. Your knees start kind of like sound like a door that needs some oil on it. That's something new. So,
right.
Yeah, you know, I got to stretch before I get out of bed now. Whereas 20, I could just jump up.
But that's intention, right? That's being strategic.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm just really protective over this space and what's next with that. But balancing and rethinking, you know, the way that I goal, right? To be like, or goal set rather. So it's less pressure, but more like discerning led, I guess.
I like that you said protective, not paranoid. Because
tell me more. I like that. Protective, but not paranoid.
You know, I'm getting comfortable again, Jasmine.
I love it.
Protective is, like you said, discerning. You know, your watchful eye, you're proceeding with caution. You know, paranoid is like, no. It's like you're so jittery. Like, it's okay. Like, let the chips fall where they may. So you have to be careful that when you're being protective, it doesn't bleed into like paranoia and you're in like overkill and anxiety, and which leads to self-sabotage, you know. So you have to be strategic in how you're being protective over it. When you're protective over something, you're also trusting. Like, I can trust Jasmine with my plate because she's not going to eat my food.
I don't know. This sounds like this might be some research for the PhD, Dr. Best, because
no,
I don't know. I feel like there's some things there that we might need to know.
And I'm just saying because I've seen it before. It's like, you make it hard for people to help you. You know? So when you're being protective, you have to trust and have patience as well.
Oh, we love a diagram.
Yeah,
yes.
Diagram. And then have grace with it as well. Okay, it didn't work out the way you thought, but I'm still being watchful and discerning of the next play. I'm not going to be anxious, but I'm going to move on time. You know, so be protected. Don't be paranoid. Because when you be paranoid, you mess everything up.
Now that's a catchphrase. Don't be paranoid.
Right.
Be protected.
Put on a t-shirt.
We'll see what we can do. We love some merch. But you know, I could talk and you know, I have questions for days. But you have some questions, thoughts for me.
I do. Let's get into it. So, some points, you know, of course, boldness, patience, doubt. I know that was on the docket. And also acceptance. So my first question is for you, Jasmine. Is boldness a learned behavior or a natural gift?
Ooh. I think it's both.
Okay.
I think we are all born with gifts and talents and the things that are, you know, unique to you or the things that people will miss, I think that you said earlier. So I think there's a level of that, right, in everyone, but your ability to execute, that's something that's developed and learned. And I think that is one of the things that I'm, grateful for of the journey of seeking purpose, because I didn't always have that, right? Like, and I said, like, the people who see things in you that you can't necessarily see. So, like, the mentors who've pushed me, or, like, the friends who will be like, Jazz, why aren't you doing this?
Yeah.
Or you need to expand that. Or I would not have a business today if it was not for my best friend, Sharnice.
We love Sharnice.
And she was like, you keep talking about this and you're not moving.
Yeah.
And it's yours to do, right? So she was like, just do it, and do it scared, right? So kind of growing into that boldness.
Yeah.
But looking back at it now, and it's funny, like, my family will talk about it all the time. They'll be like, Jasmine, like, do you realize you were, like, the only little kid, like, coming home and, like, choosing to watch Oprah or other things, or, like, building a craft, or, like, I had, like, this Barbie camcorder that I would, like, take around and, like, sneak in the living rooms and all this stuff, like, and record, and I would make my sister cousin Chelsea like follow me around and, like, record me, and then how that, like, changed over life, right? So those little things,
and look where we are
that
today,
were like sparks of boldness.
Yes.
That once you make the choice to just do it, it then just blossoms from there.
I like that. Stir up the gift. The gift is there. But you got to take that whisk out and start stirring it.
Absolutely.
Has someone ever mistaken your boldness / confidence, because I think they go hand in hand, for arrogance? I have a 2-part question to this. So first, has someone ever mistaken your boldness / confidence for arrogance? And then what advice do you give to others whose boldness is often come into question?
Yes, and, like, in different settings, in different occasions. Like, I've had it happen where people have had an issue or been intimidated and not tell you,
right,
and it becomes an issue. I've had it happen in the workplace. I've had it happen in what I thought were friendships and other things. And it's hard. Yeah. Especially when that's not your intention. Right. So one of the things that I've had to grow into, especially, like, of being an overthinker, is everybody's issue or their interpretation doesn't necessarily have to be your intent. Right. And so just as much as, like, you can have those conversations and hopefully come to some sort of common ground and really understand why someone felt that way or whatever, but that's not for you to diminish your light or change yourself. That's right. So the advice that I would give to people is, like, really evaluate why it bothers you, what's in your control, right? And, like, what does that person or that thing mean to you, right? And so, like you said, evaluate, right? Like, mistaking your confidence, like, or knowing your worth is not a bad thing. And so sometimes you have to walk away from that situation. Or if it's a relationship that you care about, then how do you get on common ground to say, like, okay, where's the disconnect here? Or what did I say, or what did you feel to make you feel that way? So I really think it's evaluating that, but also not, like, internalizing that. Yeah. Everything isn't yours to fix.
It's a them problem. Some people, could oblige with that conversation, hey, that wasn't my intent. And then others, I get comfortable. Then other times, and I can identify as overthinker because I'm very much, but 30, switch went off. You know what? Everybody's not owed that conversation, because some people are still going to choose to feel how they want to feel about you. And you know what? If that's what you think about me, oh, well.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Acceptance. What's the next steps after acceptance? And to provide context to that question, a person can be an extreme realist. They can see the reality of things. But after you come to terms, what are you doing?
Well, if we're talking, in general, like, after you're accepting, like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and, taking it from there, it's action, right? And so like you can't necessarily get into action without, a plan, right? So
Right.
taking the small bites out of like the big piece, right? So thinking about like what's something that you can do intentionally now to get where you want to go. So whether that's connecting with people, whether it's starting small, whatever that is, but it's moving from acceptance into actual action, right? Because a lot of us can get stuck to say like, oh, I know I want to change,
right,
or I want something different. Well, just because you have that mindset, it's not going to take you anywhere. It's the same thing with like people are like, oh, I'm manifesting this, right? Okay, as much as you want to manifest, stuff's not going to fly through your ceiling, right? So you got to move.
Right.
So I'd say move and get in action is the next step.
Put your mind on some wheels. Keep it moving, babe.
Now, that was very seasoned of you. Put your mind on some wheels.
Put it on wheels.
You got that from your grandma?
No, I just made that up. Right then and there.
Okay.
But you can use that on the next episode.
Thank you.
Put your mind on wheels.
I will add that to the list.
And you know what? I'm glad you said that. Because sometimes you don't want to become the person that's playing the small violin. Talking the same thing year after year. I get tired of myself being the same, position. So if I feel that way about myself, I can only imagine, someone else will feel that way about me. Now, my sister, our family, she'll say it like, okay, you talked about this. Well, even you, Jasmine,
I was about to say, I'm the
Jasmine,
queen of doing that. I will say,
okay,
we had a conversation.
We had a conversation. You said this. Jasmine's a stenographer.
I love a receipt.
She got
one
the receipt.
Thing about it, I will always have a receipt. I will always remember.
So, like, don't be the person at the pool of Bethesda. Either you're going to get in or you're going to be quiet. But either way, I can't keep complaining and keep sucking the life out of, my sounding board, my resources, because they have lives to live. So put your mind on wheels. Do what you can. Keep going at it. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Patience and doubt. Where is the fine line between the two?
Oh, so you're just trying to eat me up on camera?
No, I'm not.
What? The fine line between patience and fear and doubt. Well, one, I always say the biggest lesson that I feel like is reoccurring in my life is patience. It eats me up on a daily. And it's a cute idea too, like, oh, I'm going to have patience until you're tested. It is so funny that I feel like this is a lesson. Like now my godson, he's 2, and that's his thing. He'll say, patient. And so I was like, wow, I really inherited this. And so I would say one of the things that I'm learning is you can't have doubt without a belief. And so that means there's something there that you should be, going after, and we're human, right? So we're going to have those feelings of like, can I do this, or fear, or other people that will confront us. But the only reason why you have that is because whatever that belief is possible.
Yeah.
And so keep going, keep working at it, but also being patient. And so one of the things, like I said, of this idea of grieving what you thought would be versus like where you are, like if you would have asked me if I would be where I am at 30, like where I'm at, I would have been like, what? No.
Yeah.
But I recognize that that's a good thing because now I can trace back of every step, everything that I've accomplished still is connected to those greater goals. And so having patience in the, in the journey, but also know like those things are still on the other side. So reminding yourself of the work that you have done. And then also people who keep you in check. I feel like the full circle message of our conversation is like, the people around you, accountability, who are like, actually, no, let me remind you, or let me show you a receipt, or, giving you that fuel to keep going.
I like that. Lastly, in the spirit of being bold, what have you found to be most beneficial in being bold?
What's most beneficial? 2 things. And they're like my words of the year. Last year, my word was wholeness. So living my life out, like unapologetically Jasmine in every space, right? So there's not a work Jasmine, a volunteer Jasmine,
Yes.
a Jasmine at home, like really living my life and living that out whole. And so like you can't be bold if you don't know who you are.
Yeah.
And this year my word is peace, right? And so peace in all things. And so being still in that and like that energy that comes with that, and you know the boat might rock and all the things, but I can have peace with me to be able to walk in boldness. So that's what I would say.
Peace. Being bold in peace.
Yes,
I like that.
Yes. And I think it's how you show up. It's not always easy to do. It's something that you developed, and as much as we talk about it like this is easy, like this is an everyday struggle, and sometimes it works, sometimes it's not. I was on the phone with one of my best friends coming in here today to be like, can I just tell you that it's only Tuesday and I'm dealing with this, right? But then walking in, and then how another conversation can totally change your trajectory, right? So reminding yourself of those things.
It's all about those that can what? Pour into you.
I love the hand motions. I really do. The animations really make this.
You should have bought some cups.
Next time.
Okay.
Next time. Maybe we'll have a part 2. You never know.
Yeah, have some lemonade.
So as we like start to kind of wrap up this conversation about living boldly, what advice would you give to your younger self about preparing for this stage of life?
I would encourage my younger self to remain that gift of preparing, like being schedule oriented, time oriented, but don't let that overtake you. And when I say that, where something doesn't go as scheduled, you're like having a meltdown, so patience, giving myself grace. It's not the worst thing, and it could be far worse, and really appreciating delays that happen. Delays aren't denials, but you're at the airport, you're like, oh, I just want to get home. Plane keeps delaying, and then when you finally get on the plane for you to go home, they announce, oh, we missed a major storm. You know what I'm saying? Like, you shouldn't have to wait. You shouldn't be so anxious to jump into something, and then you're in something, and that's a whole nother mess. Just be grateful for the delay, because whatever is for you, it should come not easy, but it should come with ease. So that's what I tell myself. Give yourself grace, calm down, relax, don't overthink, don't stress, but still keep that spirit and that momentum of always being in a place of preparation. Because when you stay ready, you don't got to get ready.
Period. So before I wrap up with my last question, I think it's really important to give people their flowers.
I feel like you have something up your sleeve.
No,
Jasmine.
I don't. I just think it's really important, like when you have the opportunity to really give people their flowers and thank them. We don't always have those conversations. And so I just appreciate you saying yes. For you always showing up, and you mentioned it earlier, like I show up for people, and you do. You will show up and you will stay to the end, and you will help too. And so I just appreciate you for always, when we talk about people in our life, for always adding and not subtracting. For showing up, for being an accountability partner, but also just someone who you can just have fun with and laugh. And really have that sense of reliability, because that's really hard to find. Especially as adults, and also people who don't find it robbery to not only support you but invest in what you do and speak your name in rooms that you aren't necessarily in, and refer you, and really really walk this thing out of seeking purpose with you. So I just appreciate you and thank you for coming in because it means so much.
No problem. Anything for you. You're just, the songwriter says, you're just that kind of friend.
Love it. So before we go, I ask everybody the last question, and you know this already, but you know, every year I think of a word that really is going to be my anchor, as you will, of things that I'm really kind of like working towards, that I'm going to remind myself of, that I'm going to live towards. And this year, my word is peace. So if you had to pick a word for the year, what would it be?
I would say do. Do it.
So I'm expecting big things. With a word like do, that means...
I'm challenging myself. It's been a little doing it scared, but I'm doing it.
Sounds like we have some even if make it happen goals.
Yes. So, do.
I love that. Do in 2024.
Do in 2024. And you know another word I had? I know we're getting ready to close up. I don't want to.
You were supposed to pick one, but I'll give you the second word.
I'm sorry, but because when you ask that, more in 24, that's been my thing. More in 24.
Well, I can't wait to see all the things that come, you know, and, you know, we're 6 months into the year, so a lot can happen on the other half. So I'm excited to see what comes of it. But thank you again for coming. Our conversation on living boldly, and I can't wait to see all the people who are impacted by our conversation.
Likewise. Can't wait. Thank you.
Thanks.